a few critical points underpinning the policy decision. These include A, the need to restore the statutory ability of the CBN to keep a firm control over money in circulation. In 2015, when this administration commenced its first term, currency in circulation was only 1.4 trillion naira. B, the proportion of currency outside banks grew from 78% in 2015 to 85% in 2022. As of October 2022, therefore, currency in circulation has risen to 3.23 trillion naira, out of which only 500 billion naira was within the banking system, while 2.7 trillion naira remained permanently outside the system, thereby distorting the financial policy and the efficient management of inflation. C, the huge volume of banknotes outside the banking system has proven to be practically unavailable for economic activities and by implication retard the attainment of potential economic growth. Economic growth projections make it imperative for government to aim at expanding financial inclusion in the country by reducing the number of the unbanked population. And E, given the prevailing security situation across the country, which keeps improving, it also becomes compelling for government to deepen its continuing support for security agencies to successfully combat banditry and ransom taking in Nigeria. Notwithstanding the initial setbacks experience, the evaluation and feedback mechanism set up has revealed that gains have emerged from the policy initiative. I have been reliably informed that since the commencement of this program, about 2.1 trillion naira out of the banknotes previously held outside the banking system had been successfully retrieved. This represents about 80% of such funds. In the short to medium and long terms, therefore, it is expected that there would be a strengthening of our macroeconomic parameters, B, reduction of money supply, leading to a deceleration of the velocity of money in the economy, which should result in less pressures on domestic prices. C, lowering of inflation as a result of the accompanying decline in money supply that will slow the pace of inflation. D, collapse of illegal economic activities, which would help to stem corruption and the acquisition of money through illegal ways. E, exchange rate stability. F, availability of easy loans and lowering of interest rates. And G, greater visibility and transparency of our financial actions translating to acts. I am not unaware of the obstacles placed on the path of innocent Nigerians by unscrupulous officials in the banking industry, entrusted with the process of implementation of the new monetary policy. I am deeply pained and sincerely sympathize with you all over these unintended outcomes. To stem this tide, I have directed the CBN to deploy all legitimate resources and legal means to ensure that our citizens are adequately educated on the policy.
The press, we're reaching you live from KAFTAN's television studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. Now we'll go straight on our analysis for today, as we've got Evelyn Epelle. She is a journalist, and she'll help us analyze on the stories that we read out to you and President Buhari's speech this early morning. It's great to have you on the show again.
Good morning.
Hi. All right, viewers, our numbers are open. You can call in to make your contributions or ask your questions. Now let's start with President Buhari's speech. Everything that he said with regards to how much that Nigerians should remember that they are still in the hem of affair, and they're trying to alleviate the sufferings that Nigerians are going through, because you see how much we've seen protests almost every part of the country, in Benin, in Edo, Warri, Ondo, so many places, how people are going around to burn places, destroy properties. And we actually thought that that's during the NSAS protest, that's the time bound that we have ever seen things like that. But we see it happening now. And so he has been able to douse the tension. Do you actually think that all that he said this morning has been able to douse that madness that we've seen the last few days?
Well, I'm excited to even hear from the president because, President Buhari hasn't been very vocal, especially when it comes to things like this going on. I still remember Nigerians waiting, begging, praying, hoping to hear from him when things like the NSAS protests happened, when things like some kidnappings that have happened and issues that really concerned us all. So, first off, I think just like every Nigerian, we're excited to hear from the president, that first, because it's not something that happens all the time. So it's good that he's making these statements. Communicating with the people that you lead is not something we should beg for. It's not something we should, it's not something that should be novel, just like this. But I'm happy that even in this, as part of his outro, that he's including being vocal about these issues. So that's commendable. And even his approach, as citizens, we should be reminded that we're at the helm of affairs. It's difficult to convince anybody in Nigeria that they are the helm of affairs. When I heard that part, I was like, oh, okay. I was like, am I? Because when we look all around us, it seems like everything is spiraling out of control. Just before we got on the conversation we're having backstage, I was saying that Victoria was rather saying that I was expressing my fears about the election, the upcoming election, saying that I hope the election does not get postponed. And the reason I'm saying that is because we're now seeing protests here and there in the, coming up in the country. And I'm sure you know how these things work. Once one group has gathered somewhere, it would inspire another set of people. Because a lot of people have been thinking about it. We've all been asking ourselves, why are we not reacting to certain things? I think that we've displayed credible level of emotional intelligence as citizens. I think I'm really proud of how Nigerians have really managed their emotions during this time. However, my fears come from the fact that it's already happening. We see places like in Edo State, for example, they are already out on the streets being disobedient, and that is what we have been avoiding this whole time. So to start seeing traces of that happening and knowing how quickly these things can escalate, that's kind of why I became worried. And Victoria was of the opinion that, if everyone can, and I don't think I want to really look at it that way, that we should put the burden of responsibility on citizens to be emotionally intelligent. I think that everyone needs to play their part, including the outgoing government led by President Muhammadu Buhari, and just helping citizens find their balance and restoring sanity. I still remember the president saying in 7 days, all these issues we're having about the Naira will be over. I don't know if I'm counting.
7 years already. 7 years past,
if I'm counting properly, but the issues still persist.
All right, let's quickly take this call before you go ahead. Hello, good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning, sir. Tell us your name and where you're calling us from.
Yeah, my name is Ferdinand Annabel.
Ferdinand is calling us from where?
I'm calling from Biafra, but I'm from Rivers.
All right, go ahead, please. In 60 seconds, give us your thoughts.
Yeah, I'm so so much concern of this new Naira no stop? Because it's really affecting the masses. It's really affecting the masses on a close note. As I see going in Bayelsa here, people are stranded. Market is not moving. Nothing is moving. I don't know.
All right. Thank you so much, Ferdinand. We actually feel you, and just hang in there. We'll all pass it. This is the phase we'll pass.
Exactly.
Go ahead.
Okay, let me put a question to you. You know, Annabel said something. I asked her if she was surprised about the broadcast by President Muhammadu Buhari, and she said no. So in a way, to some extent, I feel like many people would have been expecting him to say something, but now he has come out to say these things that, okay, of course, the proclamation that the 200 Naira continues to be a legal tender. Do you think it changes anything?
Yes, it does. Communication is key, you know, and if there's any grudge that I have with this government, it's the fact that they weren't as good when it comes to communicating with the people that they lead. There were times when I desperately wanted to hear from the president. You know, I desperately just wanted him to say something. And why it's important to always hear from leaders is because it creates a sense of belonging that, okay, yes, we know that these issues have happened. And we know that some of these issues are novels, and we're still trying to find solutions to them, but that we're not all by ourselves and we're not helpless. That's why it's important to always hear from leaders.
So what's the essence of coming out to say something when you know like you're already counting 7 days? This is something that was a statement that was made by president. So coming out to say things, and then you know to some extent that it's actually not achievable, and the people might actually have you accountable or hold you accountable. Don't you think that is the reason why they wouldn't want to come out to speak on anything most times?
I know very well enough that in every scientific inquiry, you can put out a hypothesis and go out and come back and find that your hypothesis was wrong. You need to keep updating the information that you put out. If after 7 days you weren't able to meet, I'm very certain, I don't want to think that the president just randomly picked a number and said 7 days. I want to think that some thoughts had gone into that, and there are things that were in place that he must have seen that caused him to be firm to say 7 days, right? So if after that 7 days things haven't turned around in the way that you described that they would, I still expect an update information based on the encounters that have happened in that week that might have caused that 7 days not to prevail in the way that you said it would. You know, and I'm saying that that level of communication, prompt communication, was not given. We have places in the world where we would even have press briefings on a daily basis until this is sorted. And the people would hear, if the president can't do the press briefing, then we would have a chief press secretary do the press briefings on behalf of the government to the people and communicate promptly and let people know what's going on. Because prompt and consistent communication might not solve the problem, but it does a lot to douse the tension in the country. The people who are fighting in Benin are doing so because they are frustrated and they are helpless and they don't have enough information that convinces them in their mind that there's a way out of this. So I really appreciate this morning's communication. However, I wish it was something that we didn't have to beg or ask repeatedly for before we get it.
Hello, good morning. Good morning, Elder Zion.
Thank you very much. Annabel.
Yes, sir. It's good to have you today.
I thank you all.
Thank you too,
Three
sir.
of you there. God bless you.
Amen.
Thank you, sir.
God bless you too, sir.
And we see our problem have just started.
Oh, really?
And nobody had the hope that before 29th May, things will change in Nigeria. These people started right from the West Coast 7 years ago to show and demonstrate their Thank you.
Thank you
God
so
bless
much.
you.
Thank you so much, Elder Zion, and God bless you too. Like he said, take your anger straight to the polls. All right, now still talking about President Muhammadu Buhari's statement this morning, and now some part of it, he says, to stem this tide, I've directed CBN to deploy all legitimate resources and legal means to ensure that our citizens are adequately educated on the policy, enjoy easy access to cash withdrawal through availability, and to appropriate amounts of currency and ability to make deposits. Now, and then he also talked about having to further ease the supply pressures, particularly to our citizens. I have given approval to the CBN that the old 200 Naira notes be released back into circulation, and that it should be allowed to circulate as legal tender with the 200, 500 and 1000 banknotes for 60 days from February 10th, 2023 to April 10th, 2023. So now that is after the elections, and then you have some state governors and some pundits saying that allowing that old note to still coexist, definitely. What are you trying to stop with regards to vote buying? Do you agree that it has anything to change?
The permutations that the president is making, according to the speech he gave this morning, is to tackle every loophole associated with money laundering. You know, and I think that the lesser notes are less susceptible to be used for money laundering than the bigger notes. Doesn't mean that any kind of notes cannot be used, even coins. So maybe the relief, or that sense of relief that Nigerians want, is what the president is communicating by pulling back the 200 Naira notes, while also not going back on the things he said about the bigger notes. You know, so at the end of the day, I think I see the president trying as much as possible to achieve his original aims.
Okay.
While also, would I say, soft pedaling on the way and manner he's going about that, because now it's becoming apparent that people are clearly suffering. So I think that's just what's happening.
All right, let's quickly take this call. Hello, good morning.
Good morning. How was your night?
Very well, thank you. Chief Ario from Kaduna, go ahead.
Yeah, God bless you. You see, the president had won my heart this morning.
Oh, really?
What Nigeria? Yeah, he has won my heart. You know, I am not an apostle of the president, and I used to criticize him very well. But the announcement this morning, he has won my heart. My sister, look, let us look at the economy very well. You see, all of us, they are from APC, but the Buhari in him is bringing the Buhari in him now. Now he has discovered that there are a lot of money laundering. A lot of them had piled up money for this election, and the president had discovered it. And I am very happy that the president this morning, for the first time, has taken the responsibility that he is really with the CBN governor. And by the time you look at the policy is very good for this country. I am one of those people who have been criticizing the president very well. But this morning he has won my heart. And in my own view, people should even stop the attack on the bank staff and the ATM machine. We should look very well at what the president has said. The president has told us that the money outside, from 78% to 80% of money is outside now. Let me tell you, my sister, a lot of these governors going to court is for their own selfish end. I want to ask a question. For 8 months that our children have been at home, none of them have gone to see the president. The Katsina State governor also is there. They slaughtered 102 people in Maraba, Kankara, Yarugoji. Up till now, the governor have not said anything about it. We have been battling with the fuel scarcity. The governors have not said anything about it. It's because they have piled up money and they want to use this money to fight election. I pray that this election will be transparent and Nigerians will benefit. We are tired. You see, the APC governors, El-Rufai is not going there now. I think they really obey the court order. There was a court order in Kaduna about the National Industrial Court, which El-Rufai never obeyed. And they are all pretending as if they are saints now. So I give kudos to the president this morning. Let him go on so that we're able to fight this corruption in this country. And what is even annoying is that it is the same APC governors that are fighting to make sure that they block, they are even instigating some people. Like what the CBN governor is doing is not good. But today, my heart goes for the president.
Thank you so much.
God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
God bless you too.
Oh, see so many commendations for President Muhammadu Buhari.
Everyone is happy with President Buhari this morning.
But the question is
morning.
Yes,
wow.
this morning.
So emphasis on this morning.
So, but then the question is, why wait till this time to enforce drastic change when you had like almost 8 years of ruling, and then at the die or tail end you're just enforcing drastic changes?
That's a question for President Muhammadu Buhari. That's a question for
legacy.
That's a question for President Muhammadu Buhari, clearly. I'm just excited to see what happens in the next couple of days. And I'm happy that people like me, people like Annabel, people like you have successfully maintained our cool. I think the last time that I was here, we had concerns about whether or not Nigerians would sort of fall into apathy more and more and more based on what's happening here. And I still remember saying that what's important to me is that everything goes as planned and as scheduled, and come February 25, and God willing, that we are healthy, alive, and hale and hearty to go to the polls and vote. And just like the caller had said, if there are any grievances that you have as a person or as a Nigerian, I think taking it to the polls is one of the most logical ways to go about that grievance.
I agree.
And by now, I think anyone who hasn't made up their mind about who they would be voting come February 25, I think from President Buhari's speech this morning, you can start from there to look at the ways in which the other presidential candidates are also responding to things like this, which is something that concerns all of us. So you can go online, engage with the different presidential candidates, see what each and every one of them is saying. And I think I want to look out for those who are on the side of the people and on the side of the masses. Because remember that the biggest problem with this policy has been the heavy politicking around it. This policy is coming at a time and coming from a CBN governor who is nonetheless compromised by his own personal political ambitions, that's also dragged an institution that ought to be independent like the CBN into these types of conversation. And now we even have the Supreme Court coming in, we have the presidents coming in. There are a lot of would I say bridge of jurisdictions that have happened, and people who ought not to even have anything to do with this issue are suddenly the ones telling us what to do about this. So I'm excited to just see how we fare in the next couple of days. I think we're just like 10 more days now.
9 days.
9 days, you see, to the election. And if we can, just like we've had our fingers crossed this whole time, cross it some 9 more days, I think that we're very close now to getting what we all want.
All right. Still, before we let that President Muhammadu Buhari speech go, I'm going to ask you 2 questions, and I'd like you to take them in one breath. Now, one is still with regards to the Naira redesign and the controversial swap policy. Now, you have yesterday, we saw a lot of people write on their social media saying that they went to the bank and then they didn't get notes. Some of them said they got coins, so they had to get a bag to pack their coins, and then it actually threw a lot of comments online. Some people say, okay, so if I wanted to get 200,000, so that means they will have to drag like one big Ghana must go bag. So what happened to the coins all this while? So would you actually be comfortable to have your 1 million naira in coins? If at least I have, the point is I have money, I'm able to get to the bank and then withdraw, so let them give me coins instead of giving me nothing. That's one on the side. And then secondly, President Muhammadu Buhari ended that statement with saying, "I urge every citizen, therefore, to go out to vote for their candidate of choice without fear, because security shall be provided to, and then your vote shall count." Does that actually send the message across to you with regards to voter apathy? That definitely you have some people who say, I don't want to go to vote and die. So with this statement, at least, has he been able to douse any kind of tension?
Yes, I think that the statement has definitely helped douse tension, at least for me. And I want to believe that it's the same for almost every other Nigerian. I want to come back to the first question that you asked. A few days ago, while chatting with my sister, I realized that there are different levels of inequities in our country, that does not allow each and every one of us process what is happening in the same way. So the way I am processing it is different from the way you are processing it, and it's different from the way a woman who is selling moi moi on the roadside is processing it. It's just different. Every one of us have different ways of processing it. And I know because my sister was so keen on, she wants, even if it's 10,000 naira or 5,000 naira. And when she was saying that to me, I was a little confused because I kept asking her, what do you need 10,000 naira or 5,000 naira cash for? And I said that as a person who, long before this policy came out, I have personally been a cashless person. So I realized a few days ago that the way I am processing this issue of this Naira redesign and how it's impacting people is completely far off from what is causing some of these tensions that we're seeing out there. So I think that one thing we can start doing and doing quickly is this education of the masses and educating people to first and foremost recognize the different levels of inequities that exist. Inequities in the sense that there are people who have gone cashless long before this, people like Evelyn and her friends. So these are not the people that we should worry too much about, right? Let us focus on people who don't have a sense of what is going on, people who, for them, cash has always been king and will always be king. Because listening to my sister, it was important for her to just at least hold the Naira. And I kept asking, a lot of people that have that. Yeah, and I kept asking her, and I asked the question 3 or 4 times.
You wouldn't blame her. She needs to go to the market, and they don't accept online transactions in the market.
Yes, but this used to be the past standard. We're stepping, and that's why education is important.
Are we ever going to step to that standard that you're talking about?
We're stepping into a standard according to the central bank. Okay. We're stepping into a standard where the country wants to go cashless. That's what the country wants to do. The citizens need to catch up to that idea.
How do we then tell the pepper seller that we're going cashless?
We don't have to tell the pepper seller. We have to create an enabling environment where the pepper seller trusts us enough to subscribe to this new system. So for example, I haven't seen any speaking of familiarizing ourselves with the inequities, I haven't seen any targeted scheme for small scale businesses that accept cash payments. You know what I mean? The CBN hasn't there needs to be some sort of fragmentization. When you gather all these people together, you handle small businesses, there is a group of people that will educate them, teach them, those who don't even have bank accounts. I spoke to a lady a few days ago who does not have a bank account, and I asked her, so how do you get paid for the work that you do? And she said she's always paid in cash. So since all these things started, she hasn't received payment she's been working, but she hasn't received any payment for the work that she has been doing. And so I had to put her through the process and make her understand that opening a bank account is no brainer these days. It was as simple as telling her where to go, and she's been passing through that place every day. I said, have you seen that place, the road bank? So you stop there, you go inside, and just explaining to her, she has a bank account now. And she even got
sorry I had to cut in, but you know that a lot of people are still they're still like under that same radar. I was trying to get suya, and the suya man says I can't do transfer. But I said, what is there? Do transfer. He said, so if I want to go and buy meat, I can't tell the Fulani man that I want to do transfer because I have to give him cash.
Well,
same thing with
first of all, you've exposed yourself now that you'll be buying suya.
Okay.
So, but the good thing about it is, in the midst of every challenge, I want us to be that. I want Nigerians to think in the direction that in the midst of every challenge, there is an opportunity. So there's always an opportunity to innovate. This is a period of innovation. And that's how I see it. You know, those who are the smart ones, who have the tools and resources to innovate, this is the time to start innovating. I still remember when the tech community, and when we're talking of financial technology, was filled with conversations about banking the unbanked. I don't know if you remember that phrase.
Yes.
Now we haven't had any other time to bank the unbanked. Then now we need to. Now is the time to bank all the unbanked, and I want to see more and more conversations in that direction. You know, as opposed to. I'm not saying we shouldn't feel our feelings and groan about the loss. That's how change works. There has to be a period where we're groaning and moaning what we are losing.
But then it's just put a time peg to it and say XYZ time, it must be done. We're going cashless and that's it.
I'm not down for that timeline because I think that for a country that has been as informal as we have been, that timeline is very unrealistic if you ask me. However, I am not the Grand Commander of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, so I can't speak for the government as to how they came up with that timeline. I always like to think that the people in power are people. If you read the president's speech, one of the first things he reminded us is that he's a democratically elected president. He's letting us know that we are the ones that put him there where he is. You know, so it's difficult for my hands are tied. It's difficult for me to even start arguing with someone who is already reminding me that I am the one that puts him there. So the decisions that he's making, he clearly believes that
it's for your own benefit.
It's exactly.
But are we really ready for this? Because you made mention of education and the rest of it. Are they also going to educate those criminals out there? Because the reason why people would not want an online transactions when you go to the market, when you approach a pepper seller in the market, is because they feel like that when you are doing online transactions like transfer, it will not come, and you cannot wait for hours for that transaction to have met the seller of that product. So are we really ready for all of this, especially those who go about fake alerts and the rest of it?
Yeah, we're not ready. The simple and short answer to that is that we are not ready. Internet penetration rate in Nigeria has gone up since the advent of, even lately we heard of Starlink and so on and so forth. But there's still huge distrust in using electronic payments platforms and systems and products, because, like you have said, we have this issue of fraud, which is very prevalent that we haven't even tackled yet. And when you put the issue of fraud side by side with the fact that technology and even the literacy education, imagine a person in the market who does not even know how to use a smartphone. Maybe all they know how to use is the Nokia touchlight phones that are, you know, easier to use and things like that. Imagine having to give that person an extra level of complication by giving them a POS device, also teaching them how to track their transaction on the platform, to check their account balance, you know. So the education that needs to take place before this policy is rolled out is and that is the issue that we're having. The reason I'm not allowing it upsets me is because that has been the status quo, right? So it's not new, which is why it's not upsetting me. I still remember when COVID-19 happened, the Minister of Education just came out and said, so we are now moving online. Online to where? You can't just... And
then you just recall that when all of this thing started, some of the banks, you cannot even access your own online platforms. For weeks, I remember I could not access 2 of my banks.
So now,
I can't even access any of them. So you have people who have that same issue.
Yeah.
Because now I think we just need synergy. There has to be synergy between the banks.
I want to speak of that too, because everything is interconnected. We need to realize that we're living in a highly connected world, that the actions that we're taking here, you might think it's not affecting anyone, but there might be someone just called us from Bayelsa who is affected by this. There might be someone who was upset all day and has just listened to the press this morning and the things that we're saying, and that is how the person just said, okay, let me just forgive these people and just calm down, right? So everything that we're doing is we're all connected to one another. Now look at this issue of the banks. It's true that all of this started because there's an obvious, would I call it a disjoint between fiscal and monetary policy. So it's obvious that the central bank and the Ministry of Finance and even the federal government of Nigeria are not in congruence. That's why some of these things are happening. And the reason they are not in congruence is because of their own personal politics. Everybody, I see a situation where each of these institutions are being led by people who have their own personal politics that does not agree with the politics of other people. So everyone is more of a show of strength. And so the people are now the ones suffering this. And it comes down to the banks. While the bank is now battling between, should I listen to Buhari or should I listen to
my boss?
My boss, or now even the Supreme
CBN.
Court. Nobody even knows who is giving the direct order anymore. In the middle of that, Nigerians are getting angry, destroying bank properties, threatening bank staff. And remember that bank staff are ordinary Nigerians just like you and I. I happened to speak to a friend of mine who works inside of the bank, and she let me know that she doesn't even have access to the new Naira as a bank staff.
Yeah, exactly. I even talked to a bank MD and said, I don't even have 5 Naira.
And I was perplexed by that, because if a bank staff does not have access to the new Naira, how then can I have access to the new Naira? You know, so I'm calling for that, because if you're upset and you take your grievance to, let's say, Echo Bank or First Bank, and you go to First Bank and create enough panic that First Bank staff decide to choose their life and their well-being and leave, you've disconnected millions of other Nigerians from
using that facility,
banking services. Apart from even using the facilities, the bank would not be able to function, not just for you, but for millions of other Nigerians.
All right, let's quickly take this call. Hello, good morning.
Yeah, good morning. How are you?
Sir. Very well, thank you. Tell us your name or where you're calling us very quickly.
I'm Pastor Umar, Akwa Ibom, Uyo.
Pastor Umar from Akwa Ibom, Uyo.
Uyo.
Go ahead.
Yes. I love the way the women are discussing.
Thank you so much, sir.
And you are really civil. You don't want to step on toes. You do it in a nice way. Wonderful.
Thank you, sir.
I give kudos. I just want to say, these are different issues. This government is always jam-packing things, policies together. An issue of,
We're here. Go ahead. We can hear you.
issue of cashless is different from cash crunch. Is different. Just like election that is around the corner, that is another issue. Just like population census is another issue. Why should they bring these things, all of them together, considering the situation Nigeria is into? We cannot pretend that Nigeria is bankrupt. Nigeria has pretended for over a very long time. They are owing so much. Okay, I'm a pastor. I want to give you a little illustration. I won't take your time. Assuming someone does not have food, you don't have food in the house, even Gary to sit, and then you started waiting for when you have food, and you change the lack of food to fasting. And as a pastor, I advise, don't go on fasting until you have what to break the fasting. So what they are doing is just a mess of the whole country. This cashless thing should take time, not less than 6 months. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pastor Umar from Akwa Ibom. That was actually a very good one. Very funny.
So funny.
I felt like he was talking to me.
We've all had to do that one time or the other.
Yeah.
All right. You said something about not going out to vandalize things, not threatening the staff of banks, which we know is not the right way to go. But then, how can, and you said, I remember you said going out to the polls to vote out or vote in whatsoever government you feel you want, but it's still 9 days. People are hungry. People are frustrated. As in, we see this online. I personally have had to experience where I was stranded. I couldn't take a boat service because there was no network. I couldn't do transactions online. How then do we tend to like express, or perhaps change this whole narrative, express our anger in the safest way?
All right,
Communication.
Let's take this call before you go ahead. Communication, that's where you landed. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning, sir. Tell us your name or where you're calling us from.
My name is Fortune. I'm calling from Abuja.
Fortune from Abuja. Go ahead. In less than 60 seconds.
All right. Thank you very much to the guests in the house and to you people there. I want to say that in my own part, I'm a little bit relieved by the speech that the president gave this morning, because prior to this time around, there was this pressure that maybe the president may succumb to, to the pressure by the APC, by those who took him to court yesterday, or by the outcome of yesterday or that. But it seems the whole policy and the aim that he seems to have, to achieve in the first place is still in a right track, and is very, very commendable. And also, let me make this clear. There are people who are going about vandalizing banks and doing all sorts of things. Most of the people who are doing this do not have money in their accounts, with all due respect. There is nobody that will complain that I'm used to transfer, and I transfer money regularly. Just yesterday, I bought a perfume from one Aboki man, a perfume of just 400 Naira. So, and I asked him whether he can accept transfer. He says yes, if it can be possible. Then just within 2 minutes, I did my transfer and it went through. So I don't know why people are complaining. All these things is just a blackmailing, that people are deploying to make sure that
Fortune.
Thank you. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your contribution. All right, go ahead very quickly before we end the program.
Communication. I was talking about communication because the previous caller was talking about how the government seemed to jam-pack policies. I think that another thing that I see is the government also tends to, and this might be something that will be useful for the incoming governments and leaders, or wherever governance is required. There seems to be this trend where we come out with a policy without fully researching and analyzing the effects of that policy along different lines, and see how it will affect us on a social, in a social construct, in political aspect of things, the economy, just see how it will affect. You can throw out different sample scenarios and see, okay, so if I do this thing now, how would it affect women? How would it affect students? How would it affect
children?
You know what I mean? It's like I feel like every time I see any policy that's been rolled out in this country, I also see the lack of proper research done in the background before the policy comes up, and we tend to just do the research when the policy has been implemented. So I'm talking about communication because remember when Twitter was banned, it had to take conversations on Twitter and a lot of digital activism and people complaining and saying things for the government to now build intelligence from those conversations that were made to come up with the new terms that they came up with. I always see that happen. So I always encourage people to use any platform that they can to air their grievances in the form of communicating not just the challenge, but what you think needs to be done. Remember when I talked about the different levels of inequities, the last caller was just talking about how he is easily able to make 400 Naira transfer. So because he has succeeded in doing that, he believes that anybody that's talking about transfer not working is probably just crazy or trying to be dramatic, right? But because he worked for him in his own world does not mean that it has worked that same way for everybody. And I think that the way out of this is for each and every one of us to recognize that the experiences that we are all having as individuals individuals varies a lot. So you should empathize with the
other person,
with the circumstances that other people are facing. A few days ago, I went to H-Medics to do my regular shopping, and after catwalking around the supermarkets for more than an hour, I got to the carousel to check out, and the POS declined my card severally, and I was even debited. So you can imagine the disappointment. I had to catwalk out of the supermarket without anything. So I just hope and pray that everybody can empathize with the different ways that this is manifesting for others. If it's not working for you in that way, you shouldn't assume that that's how it is for everybody else.
All right, thank you so much for your time with us. Our time is fast spent. Evelyn, Epelle, journalist. It's been a wonderful time. It's always a wonderful time having this talk.
Same here. Thank you, Annabel. Thank you, Victor.
All right, viewers, our time is fast spent. We might not be able to take so many social media, but let's take this very funny one of one boy. He calls himself Smally, and he says Peter Obi has voltage. Let's see that video and come back to end the program.
Small, how you go now?
Oh, Papa, they been up, yeah.
Why they been on now?
They say Tinubu and carry Buhari and I was going on. 8 years became go see suffer again. You Buhari to suffer again. You no go walk on. Tinubu and fuel now 1 liter of fuel. You don't know how much. 1 liter of fuel hard to show. So okay, everything go there. Both darkness one the spirit go there. No be so. Maybe Peter Obi and Tamuna see better thing. I be smaller my guess since I lost think and dream. I say Peter Obi at that place. See, everyone go balance so fat any year. Show senior men why who go bring so we'll show one the way now me smaller for the worry.
Yeah, we first call like about Peter Obi now, so.
He get voltage. So if you thought there, na so we doesn't enjoy any year. My brother show now why senior men agree.
So the wait first can never go. The Tinubu now like say normally like say they come out so like say how you say Tinubu no figure lost one.
No people lost, bro. You say make a wait. And they always like this, I'll go find the first Saba.
Sure. You won't go Saba like do empty body.
But not be place, I'll buy share to road, won't BYC.
Sure.
My transport check.
Transport don't deal.
I'll get the number. Say my if I reach there, or find Peter Obi come I will go there.
You want follow?
Well, that was a funny video there, and you've been with us on the press, and thanks for staying tuned. I am Victoria Agbi.
And it's been a very wonderful day here on the press. Thank you so much for tuning in, and to all those who called in to make their contributions. We appreciate you a great deal. We'll definitely see you again. Keep watching KAFTAN TV until I come your way again from the nation's capital, Abuja. I am Annabel Orji. Good morning, Nigerians.